r/rules horror. Posted by you/TheGeckoWrangler. Nick and Rick's Pizza, rules for delivering to Shackled Jack. Hello Daryl. We've heard your delivery to the chime maker nearly took a turn for the unfortunate. It never ceases to amaze us just how quickly that strange fellow is willing to make his visitors into wind chimes. But in any case, you still have all your limbs and digits, so we'd say you handled the situation just fine. So well, in fact, that we've decided to send you delivering to yet another customer from Broken Hand Pond. We should probably mention that this one tends to be a little invasive from time to time. That said, you've proven yourself resilient these past few months, so we're sure you'll once again do just fine. And, as always, we've provided you with extensive information on this customer to keep you well informed. Read it thoroughly, and you'll have absolutely nothing to worry about. Preparation is key to success, after all. Customer name, Shackled Jack. Address, 2901 Champlain. Regular order, large anchovy pizza, topped additionally with olives, sliced onions, and excessive quantities of raw mackerel guts, mackerel skins, and mackerel fillets. Residence description, small section of shoreline near the pond's northmost edge. There's a short gravel driveway partially obscured by vegetation leading down to it. Customer description, Shackled Jack is a male human corpse, wrapped heavily in rusty steel chains. These chains cover and constrict most of his body, with the only parts not bound being his feet, right arm, and head save for a single chain running over his left eye. Interestingly enough, Jack's body shows minimal signs of decomposition, with the only visible indicators he's even dead being his pale, bloodless complexion and foggy, glazed-over eyes. Additionally, his black, matted hair sways gently around him, and, most notably, his torn but intact face is locked into a sad, melancholic expression. Rules for delivery. 1. Before leaving for the neighborhood, make sure to take with you a magnetic wristband and bottle of white vinegar from our supply room. Trust us, these items will come very much in handy on this delivery. 2. Be absolutely positive you aren't wearing any flashy or shiny objects when you arrive. You'll quite likely get the wrong kind of attention otherwise. 3. Upon getting halfway down Jack's driveway, you'll hear a sudden, sharp ringing sound. Once it occurs, it's important you do not blink until you've parked and are ready to deliver the pizza. More specifically, don't blink both eyes simultaneously, you could potentially wreck the vehicle otherwise. 4. Once you're at the end of the driveway, step out of the vehicle, firmly grip the pizza in your left hand, and blink. There's no other way to effectively reach Jack. 5. After blinking, you'll notice an immediate change in your surroundings. The shoreline will be replaced by a vast, dark expanse of water, illuminated only by sunlight trickling faintly from above along with a pair of headlights looming up off to the side. It will seem as though you're suspended in the depths by an unseen force. Do not panic when this happens. To return to the shore, simply pinch or otherwise physically startle yourself. The shock will have you back on the shoreline immediately, though you technically never left it. 6. It's in your best interest to finish this delivery as quickly as possible. This is because it is beyond critical that you do not remain on or near Jack's shoreline for any longer than 3 minutes and 24 seconds. Breaking this particular rule will have severe consequences. 7. While underwater, you'll notice Jack, floating several meters in front of you. He'll be suspended in the water by a chain stretching down towards the pond's bottom. Several dozen gray sharks will be swimming diligently around him. However, don't worry about them in the slightest. They're surprisingly docile under normal circumstances. The only thing you should worry about at this point is Jack. He'll be eagerly staring at you and his pizza the second you arrive. 8. Avoid blinking excessively down here. Each time you blink, you'll find that you've gotten slightly closer to Jack. Get too close, and he might make a grab for you with his free arm. It's also best you don't blink your eyes individually, while you won't move forward. Doing so irritates Jack greatly. 9. Should Jack manage to grab you, quickly snap yourself out of it with a pinch or slap. His hunger's greater than a simple pizza can fully satiate. 10. If, when Jack grabbed you, he managed to bite you, it's important that you soak the wound in the vinegar and put the magnetic band on if you weren't wearing it already, before returning to his abyss. While those sharks are usually harmless, they'll become a big problem if they smell blood. However, the vinegar combined with the band will be more than enough to keep them docile. 11. To give Jack the pizza, hold it out in front of you, and calmly call out his name. His pupils will seem to get larger at this, and many of the sharks will twist to look at you. Shortly, one of the sharks will grab the pizza from you and take it to Jack. 12. Jack will voice his approval of the pizza by savagely biting into it, box and all. Once he does, get out of there immediately. The sharks will join him in his meal. You do not want to become part of that feeding frenzy. 13 Jack's payment will be a bag of exactly 32 Spanish silver dollars, all dated from the year 1779. You won't need to collect this from him physically. Once the pizza's been taken and you see yourself on the shore again, the bag of coins will be sitting on the roof of your car, soaking wet. 14 Once you have Jack's payment and are back in the car, get back onto Champlain immediately. Don't even so much as look at your phone first. To restate a previous rule, things will get very bad very quickly if you spend even a fraction of a moment past 3 minutes and 24 seconds on that shoreline. 15 As long as the ringing sound in your ears has faded by the time you're halfway up the drive, you got out in time, and all is well. There's nothing else you need to worry about. Rules for being tethered. 1 If the ringing in your ears persists even after you've gotten back onto Champlain, the situation has just gotten dramatically out of hand. You are on Jack's shore for longer than 3 minutes and 24 seconds, and are now in an exceptional level of danger. His influence is strongly tethered to you now. Part of you will keep going back to his domain every time you blink, without end. Fortunately, there is a way to reverse this troublesome condition. The following instructions will help you do so. 2 The second you're out of Cribble Rock Run, give us a call to fill us in on the situation. Undoing Jack's effects requires very specific conditions, so we'll make sure everything's ready by the time you get back to the restaurant. All you really have to do until then is return in one piece. 3 While this is probably obvious, it's beyond important that you do not blink. The disposition of Jack's sharks changes drastically when people stay connected with their master for longer than 3 minutes and 24 seconds. The fish tend to get so aggressive so quickly that they'll attack the second you arrive. Not even the magnetic band will slow them down. You might not have time to snap yourself out of Jack's abyss before they start biting you. 4 It's also important that you avoid blinking your eyes individually. While it is technically a safe way to blink as you won't go to his abyss, Jack knows when you blink either eye, he'll perceive blinking your eyes separately as a taunt. Trust us, taunting Jack is a serious mistake. 5 After about 15 minutes of initially being tethered to Jack's influence, you'll start hearing a low, raspy, whispering voice calling out to you. It will usually ask calmly for you to blink, insisting that's your best option. Do not talk back to this voice in any way once it appears. Believe it or not, this situation can still get worse. 6 Once the voice realizes it's being ignored, it will quickly go from calm and reasonable to angry and hostile. It'll start yelling and shouting threats ranging from torturing you horribly to hunting down everyone you know, often even calling out your full name too for added effect. Whatever it says to you, still ignore it. As long as you do, yelling is the absolute worst thing it can do. 7 On occasion, a dark, watery shadow will appear alongside the voice. Do your absolute best not to acknowledge this thing either if it appears. Do, however, keep track of what it's doing. The only reason Jack's shadow ever shows up is to scare you into blinking, most commonly by dashing towards you suddenly, or by jumping out from behind nearby corners. 8 If at any point you notice your skin suddenly seems inexplicably damp, or you feel the sensation of being submerged in cold water for no reason, it is crucial that you do not blink again. Your link to Jack has grown very, very strong. This can happen if the sharks manage to bite you, or if Jack is sufficiently annoyed by your method of blinking. In any case, blink again, and nothing will be able to snap you back to reality. You'll be stuck with Jack and his ravenous friends for good. 9 Once you're back at the restaurant, there will be 5 of your fellow employees waiting for you in the back room. One of them will hand you a whole mackerel and a knife. Using the knife, carve your name into both sides of the fish's body, then place it on the ground in front of you. Next, simply shout for Jack Kedja, and blink while interlocking hands with your co-workers. Upon blinking, you'll find you're still in our kitchen, albeit sprawled out on the floor and now soaking wet, with a large bruise having formed on your right shoulder. Most interestingly, however, the fish with your name on it will now be gone. 10 As soon as the fish has disappeared, the ringing in your ears will abruptly stop. Jack's influence over you has now been broken, and all is well. Don't worry about that bruise on your arm. It'll go away on its own in about a day. That should be everything you need to know about Shackled Jack. As a customer, he's caused us quite a lot of trouble. You'd be surprised just how many of our employees can get off that beach in 3 minutes and 24 seconds. Although this has only ever gotten one of our drivers killed, the others who stay too long find the resulting experience extremely traumatizing. They often straight up quit before the shift even ends, though typically they're fine otherwise. The few exceptions to this are why we tell you not to acknowledge the voice and shadow that occasionally taunts Jack's potential victims. Half the time, nothing happens after doing so, but when it does, it's never good. We actually lost one of our best employees that way. Her name was Lara, and the mistakes she made with Jack may very well be the only mistakes she ever made in those 2 years she worked for us. During that tragic delivery, Lara stayed with Jack a literal second past 3 minutes and 24 seconds. However, she managed to make it back to the restaurant without blinking. We performed the ritual, and she reported that the ringing sound in her ears disappeared completely. Several frenzied blinks later, she confirmed Jack's influence was gone, and for a moment, it seemed like all was well. However, it quickly became clear Jack wasn't completely gone when Lara started screaming suddenly. Even after the ritual was complete, she could still hear Jack's horrid voice and see his menacing shadow. The reason for this was that, when Lara initially heard Jack's grim voice, she accidentally spoke to it. What she said was nothing more than a panicked stop, but it was still one word too many. The voice had been acknowledged. And now, it was stuck to her for good. We didn't and still don't know of any way to remove Jack's effects if the ritual doesn't work, so when repeating it for good measures had no additional effect, there was nothing we could do. Lara did not last long in our employment after that. Jack began taunting her daily, screaming and hissing at her so much she had trouble focusing on her job. Worse yet, Lara also said she was now having a single recurring nightmare every night. In this dream, she would find herself aboard an old wooden ship, surrounded by a large number of people dressed in clothing from the 1700s, all apparently being transported to Australia. Each time, shortly after the dream began, a violent fight would break out on the main deck over stolen food. This dispute would always end with one man being wrapped heavily in chains as 4 more men dragged him kicking and screaming to the edge of the boat. A 5th man would always try to stop them, but a 6th would always push him away with a strong punch to his right shoulder. The man wrapped in chains would then be thrown overboard, quickly sinking out of sight. But a little over 3 minutes after that doomed fellow initially sank, the people still on board would then start screaming hysterically, as large, deep bite marks appeared all over their bodies. Soon, whole chunks of their flesh would start disappearing, until eventually there was nothing left of anyone at all. All that is, save the man who tried to stop the cruel drowning that had taken place earlier, now crying hysterically in a corner. And suddenly, Lara would then see Jack, submerged in a great ocean, smiling madly in front of her, the surrounding waters filled with blood, bones, guts, and hungry sharks swimming all around him. He would then start laughing wildly as the sharks dove for Lara, which is always when she would wake up. After about a week of being tortured like this day and night, the poor girl went clinically insane. We eventually had to admit Lara to a mental health institution for her own safety after she tried driving back to Broken Hand Pond one day. She's still in that facility even now, stuck with the company of Jack's grinning shadow yelling and shouting at her all day, and haunted by visions of his demise every night. So on that note, we ask that you be extra careful on this delivery. It's a relatively simple one, but messing it up could cost you greatly. Just give Jack his pizza, don't blink unless absolutely necessary, don't stay on that shore too long, and should things escalate, don't speak to that voice when it appears in your head. Being eaten alive is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Sincerely, Rick and Nick Castillo.